Welcome and good morning, everyone, to today's webinar, The Secret to a Successful and Thriving Downtown, What It Is and How to Get There. My name is Savannah Blance Maria. I am the Programs Coordinator at Connecticut Main Street Center. In a moment, I will introduce today's speakers, but first, just a few words. Connecticut Main Street Center is the expert resource for developing and sustaining vibrant downtowns and main streets that fuel our state's prosperity. We are grateful to our sponsors and funding partners that make this work possible. Connecticut Main Street Center's founding sponsors are Eversource and the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. Additional funding comes from Webster Bank, Travelers, and Liberty Bank. I'm very proud to announce our guest speakers for today's presentation, Michelle McCabe, our Executive Director of Connecticut Main Street Center, and Carl Rosa, Field Services Director, Connecticut Main Street Center. I'll pass that over to Michelle.
Thank you, Savannah. Good morning, everyone. I'm guessing that you are here with us this morning because you recognize that your downtown Main Street Village Center or possibly a neighborhood district could be improved. We know what a vibrant downtown looks like. It's great to look at. The buildings, the sidewalks, street lamps, plantings, window displays, public art, street furniture are all in good shape. There isn't trash or graffiti. Visitors feel safe and welcomed. Storefronts are filled with interesting array of retailers, restaurants, entertainment and arts venues, personal services that all attract people to live, shop, visit, and work in your downtown. These folks can get around easily, whether they're walking, biking, or driving, young or old, in wheelchairs or sight impaired, and they know where to go and how to get there. This downtown employs sustainable practices. There are places to charge electric vehicles and to recycle. They're resilient to flooding and other weather events. They host transportation that's public transportation or micro-mobility options. They support the maintenance of their historic properties and much more. And you are also probably here because you recognize that there is a lot of work to make all of this Main Street perfection happen, and you probably don't know where to start. So today we are going to share with you what we consider to be the least well-kept secret to how to pull off a vibrant Main Street and keep it great in the face of ever-evolving challenges and opportunities. The key is management. Main Street management is a critically important economic and community development strategy. And thanks to decades of work and best practices from around the country, Main Street America, of which we are a state coordinating program, has devised an approach, the 4 points, that has a proven track record of success. Each of these 4 points that are represented in the center of this diagram, design, economic vitality, promotion, and organization, each has a set of benchmarks, activities, oversight, projects, and programming that, when implemented and adapted, ensure that all of the elements that make your downtown shine are working well and working well together. And Connecticut Main Street Center has developed its own set of assessments and trainings, educational materials and resources, programs, projects, and advocacy efforts around supporting each of your abilities to manage your main streets according to these 4 points. Having said that, we recognize that the primary barriers to being able to effectively manage your Main Street rests on either a lack of capacity, a lack of funding, a lack of public support, or perhaps all three. Today, we are going to look at each of these challenges and offer ways to address them. And with that, I will pass the mic over to our Field Services Director, Carl Rosa, to lead you through the first challenge, capacity.
Thank you, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. Challenge number 1 is lack of staff capacity. Now, we know that we all have great plans for what we'd like to see happen on our Main Street and our downtown, but we don't necessarily know how to get them executed or how to get started on making those plans happen. Sometimes if, it's left to the economic developer, for example, the economic developer is concerned with, the town or the community at large, and they usually primarily concentrate on promoting economic growth, development within a specific region or community. They work to attract and retain businesses, and they engage in activities that are dealing with business attraction, workforce development, incentive programs, infrastructure planning to achieve their goals. Sometimes the town planner may want to approach what to do with Main Street and downtown, but planners are primarily concerned with physical and spatial development of cities and regions. They usually are creating comprehensive plans for land use and transportation, housing, public spaces to ensure sustainable and organized urban development. They get involved with research and designing urban layouts, and they'll collaborate with various stakeholders to shape the built environment, primarily with a focus on improving quality of life and sustainability. But the Main Street manager has a specific area of focus in their role. Their focus is fostering the vibrancy of a specific commercial corridor or district, the area of focus in downtown. So there's some overlap in what the roles of an economic developer or planner might do. They're just concerned with Main Street and downtown. And so they support a diverse local economy. They ensure the built environment. They're tying all the stakeholders together. They're promoting the district and the positioning of the district in the town. They're dealing with property owners, merchants, businesses, volunteers, the community at large, and tying all those moving parts together just for the specific area of focus of Main Street. So on any given day, and I was a Main Street manager for nearly 18 years, so I'm speaking from direct experience. On any given day, as we approach what the Main Street manager's role would be, according to the 4 points of Main Street, when you're dealing with the economic vitality aspect, on any given day, a Main Street manager may be welcoming a new business into their downtown, or dealing with, tying all the available property spaces together that you could market for new merchants and tenants to move into, or working with property owners, giving them an idea of what the strategy and the focus is and who they might want to recruit for their building spaces. Building support for businesses and merchants so that they can survive and thrive on Main Street. When we deal with the design portion of Main Street, on any given day, a Main Street manager may be dealing with clean, safe, and friendly strategies, litter control, the physical characteristics of a downtown district, facade improvement programs and managing those, working with businesses and merchants on their window displays. In other words, making the physical environment of the downtown district ready for more investment, pleasing and attractive for visitors and shoppers to enjoy. When we're dealing with the promotion aspects of Main Street, on any given day, the Main Street manager is going to be, working with event coordination and planning the next big events that are going to bring people into the downtown district. Pulling all your restaurants together, establishing a restaurant guide or places for entertainment and points of interest, and making sure you're promoting that to people to get them to come into the district. And then finally, from the organization perspective, the Main Street managers keeping all those statistics, tracking the impact data, messaging, getting the word out about what the organization's trying to do for your downtown, coordinating your volunteers, working on fund development strategies, working on the budget, the messaging about the website and your emails and your newsletters, keeping people informed, keeping the business owners informed, keeping the property owners and building owners informed about what's going downtown in downtown and on your Main Street. Those are the aspects of organization, but tying those all together, these 4 points, on any given day, you're working on all aspects of that, of a Main Street process for your downtown. You're managing the vision and your strategic planning. You're bringing people together, all the stakeholders. You're the liaison between municipal officials and the community and the volunteers and the building owners and the property owners and the businesses and merchants and those that worked on your main street in downtown. You're managing your people force to get these projects and things done. A lot of it requires a lot of volunteer effort and support. But as a manager, to tie all that together, you're bringing all these people together to accomplish your goals and revitalization strategies for your main street and your downtown. So the ultimate goal here should be, to establish maybe a 501c3 organization or a Main Street program, but there's steps to getting there, okay? You may want to establish a steering committee or a working committee first that can identify strategies and goals and work plans about what to get done, what needs to get done, what should get done initially, okay? And a lot of this is volunteer driven at first. So at this level, maybe as you're leading to get to that professionally managed point, you're looking at your strategic planning, you're looking at your work plans, you're looking at what you can do to establish a budget to get these things done and a budget to administer all of this. And then the fund development and, raising the monies that'll make that happen. An ultimate goal would be to get to a paid professional staff person that could be the champion for all of this and move the program and the process forward. What would the recommended next steps be? Obviously, form a Main Street working group. You want to get people that are like-minded in their approach to wanting to see something done with their Main Street program or with Main Street in general and getting things together. Understanding that this is a volunteer effort at first. Developing a work plan, and a lot of that means first you have to observe what needs to get done. The work plans could be related to gathering the data, putting together an event, working on clean, safe, and friendly strategies, things that volunteers can roll up their sleeves and get done with, but somebody needs to kind of organize that. This initial working group can get that started. And they also need to create a budget. And when we talk about a budget, we're talking about the expenses that might be incurred with establishing and carrying out these work plans, but also a budget for what the administration would be to manage the program. That's a paid professional. That's all the administrative costs that go along with that. And those could be initial steps that happen to ultimately get to a more formal Main Street process and a management process. Okay, now we get into challenge number 2, which would be lack of funding, and I'd like to turn it back over to Michelle.
Thanks, Carl. So as Carl explained in terms of lack of capacity, it is possible to be able to create a number of different activities falling into design, promotion, economic vitality that year over year, day over day could potentially be enacted by a group of volunteers that are organized. But as Carl also explained, it is not a long-term sustainable strategy. And ultimately, what we are recommending is that because Main Street management is not only so important, but is so much work, that communities have at least as their ultimate goal, the goal to be able to hire staff to be able to manage these programs. And we believe that ideally, Main Streets are managed by an independent 501c3. And the reason for that is because it offers the widest range of opportunity to be able to raise funds to support not only staff and overhead, but also all of the activities that are involved in managing your Main Street. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk through with you the why, the what, and the how to fund your Main Street program. So first of all, the why. Main Street America not only has data that shows that the 4 points work to create and maintain great downtowns, they also have the data that shows that these investments do pay off. And I mean investments in Main Street management. They do pay off in terms of dollars that are reinvested in the downtowns, the number of buildings that are rehabilitated and brought into use, the jobs and the businesses that are created, and the community members that are engaged in volunteering their time to their main streets. These statistics are great to have in order to build your case for creating a Main Street program. And we encourage you to begin tracking these reinvestment statistics for yourself in order to show the impact of Main Street management. Even at first, it's a volunteer group that's engaged in this activity. And you will note that for every dollar that is spent on a Main Street management program, it has a return of $18 back into the community in terms of economic revitalization. So in terms of the what, we also are very lucky to have data from Main Street America that can show you, as in this slide, what you can expect on average in terms of both the annual budgets for Main Street organizations and also the salaries of the Main Street managers who run them. For many Main Street organizations, on average, the majority of their expenses are going to be in staff and overhead, and the events that will bring people to the downtown, raise visibility and positive perception among residents, and support their Main Street businesses and the arts and culture community. However, you could decide to invest more of your budget in other activities that you feel will have greater impact on your downtown. More important, though, probably than the expense side is the revenue side, because as I'm sure none of us are challenged by spending money. It's usually the challenges in getting money that you want to use to spend on. So the reason, as I mentioned, why we recommend that the Main Street program is a 501c3 is because you have more flexibility in your funding. So you'll know, and this is just a sample budget, that there is a municipal contribution, and it is really important that towns and cities recognize the value of investing in their Main Street management, see the ways that it can enhance the activities of planners and economic development commissions or directors. But municipalities shouldn't be the only one that's investing in this important activity, because keep in mind, the Main Street is benefiting a lot of different stakeholders. So turning to your anchor organizations, the big employers in your area, those downtowns are what sell their job openings to potential employees. There are opportunities to partner with your community foundations, in particular for grants that are for very specific projects. And then you will notice that about half of the income budget that's represented here are what we would call unrestricted funds, ways that Main Street organizations can raise their money that can be spent on any number of things. And that could be done through events that might include ticketing or raffles and sponsorships to banner programs. There's a wide range of activities that Main Street programs can engage in order to raise funds. So here is just a list of some of them. Some of them I touched on in the last slide, but some other opportunities, for example, are establishing special taxing districts, which you know are possible through the state, whether it's a business improvement district or a downtown special services district, where your area property owners can agree to tax themselves, and they will be able to decide how to invest those dollars in their Main Street programs and their Main Street activities. So recommended next steps in terms of addressing the lack of funding issue. We oftentimes spend a lot of our effort in creating plans, which are great. We create work plans, we create strategic plans, downtown master plans. Equally important is to create a strategic fundraising plan where you can identify different sources of dollars, either through partners or through your own efforts, that can support the myriad of activities that you are planning to do to enhance your Main Street. So hopefully at this point, you are convinced that, one, having some sort of a Main Street management program is important, and figuring out the way to raise those funds and support it is important too. So now we are tackling the last of our thorny problems, which is building public support for this effort. So I know that this is a question that we all get a lot for any number of our activities, and I would remind you that only a portion of the expense that is incurred for Main Street management should be from tax dollars and from municipalities. It's not all on a town to support this activity. Oh, sorry. But in addition, at least when it comes to management, there are many justifications of why it's worth investing in. So if you'll notice on this slide, there are a number of different data points that you can use in order to make your case. But equally important, these data points that you'll see are broken out into those qualities that we listed that reflect what a vibrant downtown looks like. These are great statistics for you to be able to measure anything that you're doing to try to influence any of these data points and to see if those actions are actually delivering the results that you're expecting. So just to pull out a couple in each of these qualities of a vibrant downtown. So like an investment in a diverse economy. You can be collecting information on how many businesses do you have in the downtown? What kind of businesses are they so that you can see if you have a diversity of business types. You can be tracking your vacancy rates. And if you start to do things, let's say you have a vacancy rate that you're not happy with, and you start to try some strategies to address it, if you are continually collecting this data, you're going to be able to see if you've had a decrease in your vacancy rates because you've engaged in any kind of incentive program that you might have, for example. And as I said, in each of these categories, you're going to see some possible data points that you can collect. Equally important in terms of deciding what you want to do is your strategy on what you want to do first. And this Apple Tree Matrix is a fantastic tool to be able to determine that, because especially if you are in the beginning stages of creating or launching a Main Street program, you really want to keep an eye on early, easy wins that you can support with funding, that you can measure the impact with relative ease, and best of all, if it's something that's highly visible so that people can really see and feel that your Main Street program is moving the ball forward. So with a matrix like this, you can throw every idea you can come up with under the sun, and you can gauge whether they're hard or easy to implement, have low or high added value, and then to be able to prioritize on an annual basis what you want to tackle.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here with the guiding principles. And, you know, we talk a lot about the 4 points of Main Street: economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. And Michelle touched upon Connecticut Main Street's 6 qualities of a Main Street. But a lot of people don't realize that there are also 8 guiding principles that absolutely have to be applied to the Main Street management process. And I just want to touch upon them briefly and explain what they mean. First of all, comprehensive. And what we do, how we apply Main Street, it's a very comprehensive process. It involves all these moving parts, all these action items, as it applies just to the area of focus, your downtown and your Main Street. But it's tying in the physical characteristics. It's building the collective people power that's going to get it done. It's looking at the economics that it takes to get it done. And it's also looking at strategies to raise people's awareness about what your downtown, your Main Street could offer. All of those, it requires a comprehensive look at and a comprehensive approach to the process. Incremental. And I like to say that, you know, downtowns may not have gone on the retrograde overnight, and they're certainly not going to turn around to a better place overnight as well. This process is an incremental process. You have these incremental steps of accomplishments, achieving goals that are ultimately going to get you to a bigger picture. Sometimes when we grab too high for the brass ring, we fall down. But using an incremental approach to getting better with your Main Street management process will get you to a better place over time. Self-help. Nobody's going to come in and do this for you. As a community, you've got to roll up your sleeves and tackle it on your own. You've got to make a difference for your downtown and make a difference for your community in so doing. And that's everybody pulling together and helping yourselves make that happen. Building partnerships can't be done just with the Main Street manager, just with the municipality. You've got to forge the partnerships. Those are the funders, the stakeholders, the building owners, property owners, businesses, the community at large. Pull all those partnerships together, companies and businesses and longstanding anchor institutions that are in your downtown. Forge those partnerships, and they will help you get to a better place. It's asset focused. What are the major assets that you can identify, those destination locations or major attractions or things in your downtown that you could build around or build off of? Could be your theater, it could be your park or your green, your town green, or it could be that destination location that you know everybody goes to and comes from out of town to get to. Build around it, but find out what those assets are in your downtown. The quality principle deals with everything that you do to apply to your downtown management should be done with a quality point in mind. Whether you're producing marketing materials or your website or your messaging, everything should be done professionally and with quality. We're serious about this, although what we do is fun, but we're serious about making sure that it's with a quality approach. This next point about change, and it really involves changing people's perceptions. How many times do we hear there's no place to park, or there's nothing going on downtown, or it's not safe? A lot of that is perception. It's not always the reality, but there are perceptions about downtown. So a lot of what we do is to try to change people's perceptions about what is happening downtown and the good work that's being done to make downtown better and make your Main Street better. So you're always working on trying to change the perceptions and, you know, make sure that people are aware of what's happening. And then finally, action orientated. It's time to roll up your sleeves and make things happen. You can talk about it, you can plan, you can have the meetings, but ultimately you're going to have to execute the projects and programs. And the Main Street process is action orientated. It creates the environment where you actually get things done. So applying these 8 principles to the process is going to be a recipe for success moving forward. So what would the recommended next steps be for building that local support and moving forward with the Main Street process? First of all, you want to make sure that the community understands and that everybody understands, the stakeholders, why do we want to even fix up our main streets and our downtowns to begin with? Why do we want to do that? So you really have to, and that comes with organizing your community presentations, making the case, explaining what should be done, what needs to be done. It's an inclusive process that brings all the parties and players and stakeholders and partners together to make it happen. And then also, you know, that gathering of that coalition of the willing. Start with building your team of people that, you know, think the same way. They want to see progress and they want to see your program move forward. Build that coalition. Those 2 points together will make you achieve some great things for your Main Street and your downtown.
You know, it's funny. Here's an ad lib moment. I would add a third step actually to this. So everyone grab your pens. The third step of this, and we actually did cover this in the earlier part of building that public support, is collect your data and tell your story. It doesn't have to be, I know that there was a very busy slide that you will, by the way, be receiving in your recap that outlined, you know, a number of different data points that you could collect on vibrancy in all of those 6 qualities. And you don't have to collect data on every single one of them, but certainly being strategic about what information you collect so that you can continually tell your story back to the community that showcases all of the ways that the downtown is better because of the work that you're doing. So in summary, we have outlined for you a number of different things that you can do in each of these problems that exist in order to launch a Main Street program. In terms of your lack of staff capacity, you can form a Main Street working group of volunteers. You can develop a work plan and create a budget to support those activities. For lack of funding, it's really important to create a strategic fundraising plan that looks at all the different options that are available to you to raise funds to support the work. And then finally, in terms of addressing the lack of local support, you can organize community presentations, gathering a coalition of the willing and the stakeholders that see the value, And the third point that I'm adding at the last minute is collect your data to tell your story. So you will all be receiving an email with a recap of this webinar that includes our slides, but we're also going to be including some materials that will help you with hiring a Main Street manager, that will help you in developing a Main Street action plan, and then also is going to introduce you to a new program that Connecticut Main Street has developed. So we understand that starting a Main Street program is probably about as overwhelming as actually executing Main Street management to start with. So we have just developed a new program and a roadmap that can help fast track the creation of a Main Street program. So Jumpstart Your Main Street is new, and it will bring Connecticut Main Street staff to you, to your communities, to lead stakeholders in a 7-step process to get this effort off the ground. And please feel free to reach out to us if you would like more information about this new program. And I think with that, we're going to take some questions. Am I right, Savannah?
Yes, thank you, Michelle and Carl. Thank you for going through and sharing some of the secrets to our thriving Main Streets. So one question that we have that came through our Q&A, and if you have questions, please leave them in the Q&A. This question says, is this strategy for Main Street management really a reworking of a special taxing district?
I would say no, in that a special taxing district can supply the funding that would support Main Street management. It houses the Main Street management. It can house the Main Street management. Some of that is a question of the folks that have organized the Business Improvement District or the Downtown Special Services District, their decision on how to invest those extra dollars that come in through the formation of that district. And some communities do decide to invest that in Main Street management, in an executive director who can be executing all of those strategies under design, promotion, economic vitality, and organization. But it is not a given that setting up a district that's where those funds are going to get invested. I don't know, Carl, if...
Yeah, and I'd like to add that sometimes the focus of a business improvement district or a special services district is on the certainly on the clean, safe, and friendly strategy of the environment, getting event coordination, activities of that nature, but doesn't necessarily get involved in the historic preservation aspects or the interface with businesses and merchants and business improvement types of aspects. Some do, but not all. The Main Street process is a little bit more comprehensive. It really touches all aspects and all facets. The other thing to remember is the taxing districts, those are approved by the building owners themselves by a vote. And so as their board gets formed, they get to decide how the funds that they've collected get spent. And if the board says we want to focus a lot on safe programs and security or clean and friendly programming and maintenance of the downtown district, or events coordination, they get to drive that. Whereas the Main Street process covers it all automatically, takes all aspects of it.
Great, thank you to you both. Definitely sounds like there's some clear differences there. The next question that came in, what are the elements of a successful Main Street Board of Directors? Who needs to be at the table? What do board members do?
That's a great question.
I can start that, Michelle, and just tackle it. I think your Main Street board should be made up of representatives of all the major stakeholders in your area of focus, your downtown or your Main Street. Certainly the major, like if there's a YMCA, somebody from the municipality, museums, the theater, property owners, the business representation. There should be disciplines of all aspects of the Main Street on your board, on your Main Street board. Certainly those that could help with fund development, which is key. Because when you look at the two major responsibilities of a 501c3 not-for-profit board of directors, particularly as it applies to the Main Street process. One is advocating for the program and what it means and what it represents for downtown. And two is ensuring that the program is fiscally solvent and can raise the bucks needed to get the job done. So you should have representation that can get you to that place on the board.
Yeah, I would agree with Carl and say that the representation of that diversity of stakeholders, it's going to help just in terms of figuring out what the Main Street program, the staff and the volunteers can and should be doing. It allows for the buy-in that's so important in supporting your Main Street program, so that if somebody were to say, well, why are we doing this? You not only have maybe, property owners, but you'll have folks in the city government that understands the importance of it. You'll have the business community saying, yes, we really need this. And also your diversity on your board helps with your data collection. If you are doing activities that are intended to, let's say, increase the value of the properties in the downtown, having property owners as part of your board mix is going to be able to help you to ask the question to get the data on, yes, in fact, our property values have increased, or we've seen more people in our businesses, et cetera.
Thank you. Thanks to you both. Main Street, we have a diverse issues to address, so definitely makes sense to have a diverse board working on those issues. Another question that came through is, do you have a case study of any towns and cities in Connecticut that have gone from no Main Street program to having a paid Main Street manager? How long did that process take?
That's a good question. I know that we have many examples of different levels of management for downtowns. We have in Connecticut, we have actual Main Street programs like Main Street Waterbury, like Albany Avenue in Hartford and Westville Village in New Haven. We have business improvement district models that are members of our Connecticut Main Street network. And we have also management approaches that might originate out of the mayor's office or the selectman's office, or from an economic development commission or from the economic development office. So there's many approaches that are being applied to downtowns and main streets. I know that I can only speak to my experience with Main Street Waterbury. 20 odd years ago, there was the effort to try to get a more formal management approach to downtown Waterbury, and the stakeholders came together, and it took them several applications with then Connecticut Main Street Center to become a designated Main Street program. And it took maybe a couple of years for that process to finally play out. I started it, I believe, in the early 2000s, and by the end of 2003, there was an approved by Connecticut Main Street Center designated program status for Main Street Waterbury. And then it was just a progression from there. But that's the model that I'm familiar with. To me, it depends on how willing and how eager the community is to get going, and how much support there is to make something happen. You've got to build that coalition and that board, that think tank, that steering committee first to get it done. And it could take months, it could take a year, it could take, less than that.
Just to hop in, first, I will say that's a great question, and we can definitely get the answer to that because, as Carl mentioned, there are a number of communities that have Main Street programs that are both, in a nonprofit model, for example. We can get the history of, what the seed funding might have been to start those programs, how they evolved. Carl, in Waterbury, when you joined Main Street, did they already have a funded budget that supported, for example, your position as a Main Street manager, or was that something that had to, how long did it take to get to the point where they could hire someone, if you know?
At the time, the requirement by Connecticut Main Street Center to Waterbury was, you've got to demonstrate the ability to collect the funds, funding commitments, public and private, in order to sustain a program and a paid professional to hire a paid professional. So
How long did it take from that moment to gather the funds for
I think
Waterbury,
it
would you
took
say?
months.
Okay.
Because of the process, you have to outreach, you have to convince the local bank to put some skin in the game, the municipality, the major stakeholders in the downtown. It was really a coalition of
Mhm.
people that all agreed, they got on the same page. We want to do something for our Main Street and for our downtown. We're going to put some money on the table, and this is going to be a true public-private partnership of fund development to make this happen.
Our next question kind of ties into what you mentioned, Carl, about the convincing. This person it's more of a comment and a question. Still not clear on how to translate public or municipal investment into tangible benefits for residents and taxpayers.
That's why we're so we are adamant about tracking data. Okay. And when you're thinking about the area of focus that you're working on, your Main Street, your downtown, the data we're talking about that you really have to be focused on to show the return on investment for the skin in the game that the municipality might have in this is, jobs created for downtown, new businesses in, or businesses that may have been relocated out, property transactions, because even though a building may change hands from one owner to another, it's still showing interest in investment for your downtown. Public and private improvements. If there's public improvements like new sidewalks or streets or whatever, and the building owner in front of that decides to put $500,000 into the upkeep or the improvement of the buildings, there's a real public and private, that should be measured. There's a real public and private investment going on for your downtown. Volunteer support and volunteer hours of roll up your sleeves. Okay, if you've got a lot of volunteers helping out with your events or all of these projects, the average volunteer hour in Connecticut's worth about $27. So if you're tracking volunteer hours throughout the year, that's good leverage to show that there were people that stood up, rolled up their sleeves, and volunteered their time for a better downtown or a Main Street. Okay. Event attendance. How many people are showing up in your downtown to go to events? All these things should be tracked. Who's tracking that? That comes from the Main Street manager, and you can show the local community, we're tracking all this. We're seeing improvement. There's people investing in our downtown buildings. There's jobs being created, and there's business being happening in our downtown. A lot of times in the public-private realm, if the Main Street program could do things that help the municipality, like informing the businesses and merchants that the town's going to come through and milling and paving their streets. Heads up, let your customers know, or keeping your sidewalks clean and neat to the street as the city comes by and sweeps it all up. Interfacing with public officials, public safety officials and the police, good partnership opportunities there for public safety in downtown. We did a program with parking, and it was on our dime, not the city's dime, to put a complete comprehensive strategy together for everything you need to know about parking in downtown Waterbury. Okay. We did that, still in existence today, and didn't cost the city a dime. We brought that in. So there's a lot of support that the program could be as a good partner to the municipality and show the return on investment back to the municipality for things that are happening in downtown.
I would add to that too, that, being sensitive to what are the major problems that people see for the downtown and actively tackling those. So if you know that people don't feel safe, or people don't feel like the kinds of businesses they want are there, or if it's a vacancy problem, it's being responsive to what you're hearing about what people want to see in their downtown, and creating those programs, those projects, those products that can help address those challenges. And again, collecting the information so that you can tell your story about how you're being responsive to them. And I would add to, just very quickly, that part of the beauty of Main Street management is that it's never just sort of one thing. So for example, perhaps the issue is, building, whether the attractive buildings or vacancies or whatever. It's not just redeveloping a property. It's also, well, what business is going to go in the bottom floor and making sure that they're successful. It's also about whether that building and the business is in an ecosystem that is supportive, that is attractive, that is exciting, that is being promoted. So even if you can't just invest in one thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that what's great about a Main Street management approach and program is it has its eye on all the different factors that have to contribute together to make something successful, make the downtown successful.
Great. Thank you. So you both just addressed about the public sector. Now we have another question about how private sector can play a role. And the question is, how can the private sector play a part in funding, and how do you keep control of the goals and messaging instead of it being an avenue to promote private business?
So predominantly what a 501c3 and a Main Street program would be is it's an educational program. It is talking about best practices and teaching best practices for how to manage a Main Street. So it's encompassing all of these aspects, the physical characteristics, the event coordination, the history of the downtown as well, and bringing all those moving parts together. So the private, and if you are a 501c3 program, you can get, tax deductible contributions and donations to your program. So that if the municipality is supporting you, that's one, as Michelle showed in that graphic, that's one component of an overall fund development strategy. But the rest of it is fundraising, grant writing, being able to apply for grants to bring in for programming, for educational program, for certain types of events. Also individual contributions and donations from the private sector, from businesses, sponsorships, all of that is. So those are the types of things that the private sector can help with, helping with fund development. And it just shows that everybody has a skin in the game. It's not just strictly on the back of the municipality. The private sector plays a huge part in that. And the overall message is that you're looking at the district, the Main Street area focus as a whole, not just one business, not just one building. Everybody's in it together. So that's really how the private sector can get more involved and help out.
And there are ways.
And one other thing, Michelle, just that human capital as well. A lot of these businesses that are downtown have employees that can volunteer to help out with events and programming for downtown as well.
And I think if I understood the question correctly, there is also the concern about not having the private sector, I guess, determine too much. Am I understanding that correctly, Savannah? That one of the elements of the question, I think that there are ways that all nonprofits establish guardrails that protect from any one entity sort of driving the effort. That's why you have a board of directors. So let's say one of your major funders, let's say you have a private sector funder who really wants you to do something or in a way that you're not comfortable with, whatever it might be. It's a whole board of directors that is overseeing that this nonprofit is fulfilling its mission, and its mission is in managing the downtown. And so there are different ways that you can protect what is essentially the credibility and the freedom that this Main Street management organization has to fulfill its mission, which is downtown vibrancy and revitalization.
Michelle, also I wanted to add that the private sector can also help with in-kind support. And we didn't talk that much about it, but in-kind support is also very important and very essential to this entire equation. If there are services that they can provide to the nonprofit organization that might help them and might help benefit the Main Street and the downtown, that's key.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Michelle. The next question, and perhaps the final question, is realistically, how many hours a month should be spent by a 5-person economic development commission for a 5,000 population town to get a good Main Street program running, and then how much to sustain it? $1 million question.
It's,
I mean, honestly, what I would do is start with, like, I would take the 4 points, especially if the person, let's say, is asking, who happens to also be a Main Street member and also happens to have an assessment that's done there. You will have, you know, a list of things that you could be doing to improve your downtown. And, you know, depending on what those activities are, I suppose it could be a lighter lift or a heavier lift. You can look at that list of things and think, you know, how am I going to get this done? How are we going to get this done? Like, how much effort is this realistically going to take? And I think that is kind of your starting point, is understanding what you want to do and how quickly you want to do it. Because ultimately, a volunteer committee could do Main Street management, but a team of volunteers can only do so much in what time that they have with what resources they have. I don't know if, Carl, you have anything to add in terms of like being
well,
able to sort of calculate hours to effort. That is, you know, some of it is a little
I think
guesswork.
you pretty much framed it pretty well, Michelle, on that. I mean, it's, you know, if you, an economic development commission, they're meeting maybe once a month for 2 hours. Yeah, this is going to require more volunteer time. There's no question about it. But it all depends on how far you're willing to go, how you can recruit additional volunteers in your community to help you out, and what specific projects you may have identified initially that you want to get accomplished to start with.
Mhm.
But it's going to require more hours than just the commission meeting once a month for 2 hours. So, I mean, I hope that kind of puts it in perspective.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Michelle. We actually did have a few more come through. What needs to be in place before a community can start to properly manage its Main Street commerce?
To properly manage its Main Street commerce.
Yes. Maybe this was 2 parts, actually. What needs to be in place before a community can start to properly manage its Main Street commerce? We need government and town hall to work with merchants more. Any advice?
I mean, I would say like part of why Main Street management is really important is because that person is feet on the ground every day having these conversations so that they have very specific asks of government that will help their businesses. You know, it's not useful necessarily to go and say, our businesses need help and then just leave it at that. Like your Main Street manager, with time and expertise, can take a problem that your businesses is experiencing, understand who's responsible for all the things that need to happen to solve that problem. And chances are some of those problems may lie with someone in the municipality, but some of it may actually lay with someone else in terms of the responsibilities. And that person needs to translate those needs into concrete action. Is it revolving loan programs? Is it helping to work with property owners because there are challenges with rent? Whether it's about safety, garbage, so permits. Your Main Street manager should know, oh, that problem, I need to talk to that person at City Hall. They are the ones that are able to handle that challenge, and to be able to have a relationship with that person in City Hall to help grease the wheels. Like really, Main Street managers, like the key is relationships, knowing all the people, having a relationship, they know you, you know them, and being able to be very strategic and surgical about fixing problems.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you. Sounds like it's a lot about who you know and how you can connect the constituents to what services the downtown needs. One question, and this is something we've talked about within our organization, something maybe that can happen more in our state. Have smaller towns ever collaborated to create a regional Main Street management program?
No, but they should. They should, and it makes a lot of sense, I think. Going back to the earlier question about, if we're in a small town, there are only 5,000 people, we know we need something, but we definitely don't need like a full-time person 100% focused on this all the time. I think for towns to collaborate, to come up with your sort of work plan and figure out, is this something, that in a 2-town neighboring radius, one person could handle both? I think it's a great idea, especially too, because if those 2 towns are regional, they're next to each other, then this Main Street person is able to talk to both communities and provide some ideas about, if one community needs a certain kind of business and then the other one can do something that's complementary. Like, it also allows for some of that cross-pollination that results in some really interesting work.
Thank you. Thank you to you both. And I just wanted to let you know that we do have a few comments in the chat saying that they are very excited to bring this information back to their Economic Development Commission, back to their town, and they're finding this information very inspirational and supportive to their work. So with that, I'd just like to thank both Michelle and Carl for sharing the secrets to a thriving downtown. And I will close out now. Everyone, you will be asked to complete an evaluation, and you'll also receive an email recapping today's presentation. We invite you to join the more than 80 communities around the state committed to improving their Main Street by becoming a member of Connecticut Main Street Center. As a member, you receive exclusive help and resources to support your downtown work. Please visit ctmainstreet.org to learn more. Registration is open for our March 2025 summit in collaboration with the Capital Region Council of Governments, 10 Years of TOD and the Road Ahead. The summit will be held at Parkville Market in Hartford. Visit our website to register. Registration is now open for our April webinar, Preparing for the Unthinkable, Lessons from Lewiston, Maine. Join us from 11 a.m. to 12 noon on April 17th, 2025. Please register at ctmainstreet.org/events. Once again, we thank our sponsors and program partners. When you exit this webinar, you should be prompted to complete an evaluation for this presentation. Please take a moment to share your thoughts, as it helps to shape our programming so it's most valuable to you. That concludes today's webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.